Good morning. So we are going to start our chapter number six. This is the last chapter of our syllabus, and it will also contain some other renewable energy resources because in second section we are concentrated on the renewable energy resources type resources and the energy. Particularly in the renewable energies, the most important energy is the uh, solar energy and then the wind energy because these two the intensity of these two energies and the energy absorbed extracted from these two type of energy resources are very high whenever we compare to the other renewable energy resources. And these solar energy and wind energy, these are the clean type of energy. Similar to that, the sun or the sun radiations are directly and indirectly produces the other energy resources, or those are in behind those energy resources. Those are called as biomass energy, geothermal energy, ocean energy, tidal and wave energy. So the geometry, or we can say the position of the Earth and Sun, then the interconnection between the Sun and Earth atmosphere, and also because of the sun radiation these other renewable energy resources are produced. So if you particularly saw the biomass energy or the biogas energy, it is the source of this energy is the sun radiation, right? So whatever the radiation incident on the Earth's surface, those has been used by the plants to grow up. That process you already saw or already heard that is the photosynthesis process. So by using that process, it will grow into the bigger trees, and that's how the biomass has been generated. Now, these particular trees will be consumed, or we can say these plants have been consumed by the different animals. Those are producing some biomass, or sometimes we are carry out of the different practices inside the agriculture sector, and that particular sector also biomass is produced. So there are the if you saw the at the root of this particular energy resource the sun radiation is the main source of energy, right? So these are directly or indirectly, it is the because of the sun radiation, because of the presence of the sun, or we can say the geometrical relation or the physical relation between the sun and the earth, right? The, Similar to that, there is a geothermal energy. Now, geothermal energies will concern regarding the whatever the thermal energy present inside the earth crust, and that energy has been we can harness. Now, the sites available and all other things aspects are very important in the case of geothermal energy because at any location we cannot harness this type of energy. It is having some location, at that particular location there is a possibility of harnessing geothermal energy. Now the ocean energy. Now there are different types of the ocean energy. Ocean thermal energy we can utilize. We can utilize the tidal and wave energy of the ocean. Also we can utilize the wind energy and the offshore wind energy, sometimes called as. So these are again the effects of the magnetic field or the magnetic field interaction between, or we can say the gravitational interaction between the sun and earth. Okay, so these all renewable energy resources, particularly based upon the sun energy or the solar radiation, it is directly or indirectly because of the sun position or because of the interconnection between the sun and earth. It may be a gravitational interconnection, it may be a geometrical interconnection, it may be energetical interconnection. So because of that, these particular solar different sources are available. And in this particular chapter, we are going to study these sources. So it will consist the introduction to the different energy resources and the particular components or the particular devices through which we can create or we can harness this energy into the useful energy resources, or we can convert that energy into the useful energy. So due study we are going to see now. This is the overview of these different energy resources. Okay, we are not going to going into the details of these energies. We are going to see some devices, the important devices like the biogas plants, different types of the biogas plants, then the different types of geothermal wells are there, then the ocean thermal energy conversion system. So some important systems we are going to see and the introduction of these different or the other renewable energy resources. So first energy, that is the biomass energy. Okay, or sometimes it is called as a bioenergy. As you already know the introduction or what is meant by biomass and what are the particular components of this biomass, how to harness energy from the biomass, etc. So first of all, what is meant by biomass? Or how we can actually harvest the energy or actually harvest the energy from the biomass. Now, for that, you must know what is the actual energy resource. Okay, here. Because if you saw, generally, this biomass means what? It is the mass or it is the energy produced because of the plants available on the earth. That is the particular we are going to see in the biomass. Okay, because we are obtaining the biomass from the plants itself, the body of the plant or the leaf of the plant, root of the plant. Okay, so first of all, the energy or we can say the radiation coming from the sun, these radiation it will be absorbed by the plants. Okay, and that absorb energy or that radiation is used for producing the plants or we can say the whatever the material required for the growing of the plant. This particular process is known as a photosynthesis process, right? You heard of that particular process in which by the help of sun radiation the plant will produces the required solutions or the required material for the building of the plant, and that for that they are using the radiation. It will also require carbon dioxide from which they will separate out carbon and it will release the oxygen into the atmosphere, and that carbon is used to produce the required energy for the growing of the plant. So if you saw, the main ultimate energy resource is the sun, because if there is no radiation, there will be no any photosynthesis process, and there will be no any generation of this biomass. So for that, you must know what is the actual energy resource behind this biomass energy. Okay, so first, that is the sun. Just a minute. So the sunlight which is absorbed by the plants, those sunlight, that sun radiation or sun energy is used for the photosynthesis process. That photosynthesis process also require additional input from the land or from the other other inputs, and that after photosynthesis, that plant will develop the required nutrition, required inputs or the required outputs for the growing of the plant. Now, if you saw the energy transformation, first of all, the sunlight is used, carbohydrated or the carbohydrates has been generated, that has been given to the plants. The plants will be use that energy, it will converted into the biomass, and at the end of this cycle, we have the biomass or the net energy, which is much more less than the sunlight or the sun radiation energy received by the plant. So this is the actual energy transformation or the energy routes. Okay. Now, what is the biomass? First of all, the biomass or the energy which is required or which is obtained uh, from the cellular matters or the plants, living plants or the dead organism, those are all called as a biomass. Okay, that particular word bio, okay, that will indicate or that will give you the idea regarding this particular energy. So this cellular matter from the living or recently dead elements or the organisms which we'll call as a biomass. Some examples are the wood, right? Wood is there, then the straws are there, this is the straw will be obtained from the different types of the grass. Then the waste from the agriculture industry, the recycle wood industry, then the different organic domestic waste are there, that sewage sludge are there. So all those are called as the biomass, and that particular biomass is used to generate the power or generate the biomass energy. Because this will contain some energy, right? The wood is itself contains some energy. The straw is also contains some energy. Waste always having some energy into it. It may be a waste for particular process, but in the other aspect, if you saw, it will contain some energy. So that energy we can use, and that biomass energy we can convert it into the required energy or the heat or the power, etc. Now for that there are different ways. Okay, to convert that biomass energy into the required type of energy, there are different ways are there, and we can use these different methods, different ways to convert, and we can obtain the required type of energy. Now if you saw, these are the biomass. You can say all the Earth living matters is called as a biomass, and they will exist in the thin surface layer called the biosphere. Okay, then the biomass is only a small portion of the Earth mass, but in the human terms, it is an important resource or the important source of the energy. Now, these biomass will constantly being replenished, because as we know, if you cut down the plant, again it will regrow by using the sun radiation and other nutrition, by using on the surface of the earth. So it is the constantly being replenished. So we can say it is the constantly renewable energy. Okay, and the flow of energy it is from the sun and the process of photosynthesis. You already know the idea regarding the photosynthesis. Now, from this particular biomass, there are different ways or there are different methods are there through which we can obtain the required type of energy. Now, first of all, what is photosynthesis? This particular process is very important because it will directly create the biomass, because this particular biomass, which is having nearly 90 to 95% of it is from the plant. Okay, and these plants or the body of the plant is all it is made by using this particular process, which is called as a photosynthesis. Now, photosynthesis is the making of the organic structures and the chemical stores by the action of solar radiation. So, by using the solar energy, solar radiation energy, the plants will create itself, or it will create the organic structure, sometimes called as the carbohydrates, and that structures are used to build a particular plant. Okay, now this solar radiation on the green plants and the other photosynthesis organism must relate to the two dominant functions. First one is to temperature control for the chemical reaction to the process, and the photo excitations of electrons for the production of oxygen and carbon structural material. Because only the sun radiation is not enough for the photosynthesis process. For the actually we also required some additional nutrients, like we required some nutrients from the land. We also required some carbon dioxide to carry out the photosynthesis process, because the carbon required for the building of this particular or making of the organic structure, we require carbon, and that carbon will be absorbed from the atmospheric air in the form of CO2, carbon dioxide. So first of all, what will happen? That carbon dioxide will be split up. Okay, the bond between the oxygen and carbon will be split up by this particular process, during this particular process, and carbon will be separated and oxygen will be separated. Now oxygen will be exhaled to the atmosphere, released to the atmosphere, whereas the carbon is used for the generation of the organic structure. Okay, so that's how the plants always absorb the carbon dioxide. It will take the solar radiation to carry out this photosynthesis process. It will also require some nutrition from the earth. Okay, so for the carry out this photosynthesis process, there are two main functions are very requirement. That is, first of all, the temperature control, because this particular chemical reaction will happen at the particular in the particular range of the temperature. If temperature is very high or the less than that particular range, it doesn't going to be happen. Also, the photoexcitation of the electrons for the production of oxygen and carbon structural material, right? So that two dominant functions are there, which will dominate the speed of this photosynthesis process. Maintaining the correct temperature is also important. So solar radiation might be reflected or the transmitted rather than absorbed to the increased photosynthesis. So certain amount of solar radiation is only going to be absorbed by the power plant, for the plant. The main organic material produced in the carbohydrate, which is also known as the glucose, and its chemical formula you can see that is the C2H12O6. If you burn this glucose in oxygen, the heat will be released. So the ancient way to generate the power or to use this biomass to produce the energy, it is to just combustion. Okay, just burning of this particular glucose or the organic components or the organic structure, it will create the heat, and that heat released from that combustion process is used for the different purposes. So that is the one of the ancient way, or we can say the traditional way to obtain the heat energy from burning of the biomass energy. So in recent years or in previous 50 to 60 years, if you saw, there are other ways has been defined or the invented through which we can obtain the energy. Okay, so if you saw, there are different ways are there. This is just the basics of the photosynthesis, the chemical reaction, and how it will by the use of radiation or the light, how the carbon dioxide has been break, and by use of the water and the carbon dioxide, the glucose will be generated or it will manufactured. So basics you can see here. Now, these are the bioenergy conversion technologies: the combustion, anaerobic digestion, gasification, pyrolysis. Okay, so these are the four techniques or the four methods through which we can obtain the energy or the useful energy or the power from the biomass. Okay, first of all, that is the combustion. Second one is the anaerobic digestion. Third one is the gasification, and fourth one is the pyrolysis. So first of all, just see the video regarding this biomass introduction and these four techniques. Then you will understand what are the techniques and for which how we can obtain the energy from these different types of the method or the methods. Okay, just see this video.
Our banana peels,
Is it
nutshell.
audible? Is it audible?
And other leftover
video, you will
foods can
understand
actually
two
power the device you're watching this on. It's called biomass energy, and it's not only leftovers you can use. Wood, plants, or even animal feces can be a source of electricity or heat as well. We're surrounded by biomass, and as such by opportunities. Unlike coal, this source of power can be regrown. Companies and governments around the world are ramping up investments. But at the moment, only around 4% of agricultural space is used for biomass energy crops. So, how big is the potential of biomass energy really? Let's start with how our trash becomes treasure. One of the ways organic matter is turned into energy, suitable waste can be anything from leftover food and manure to crop waste. It's collected from farms, restaurants or homes and then put into a processing plant to clean it from other materials like plastic. The next stop? The bioreactor. It's where bacteria eat up the waste in a so-called digester, which is sealed off from oxygen. This process is called anaerobic digestion. At temperatures of around 55 degrees Celsius, the organic waste is fermented over several weeks. In that time, biogas is produced. The gas contains high quantities of methane. It's a powerful source for generating electricity and heat once it's been fed into the gas grid. It can also be used to power natural gas vehicles. The leftover biomass can be used as compost for farming, for example, making the whole process circular. Biogas plants of this type exist all over the world. In Europe, there are around 20,000. There are estimates that biomethane could cover up to 40% of the EU's gas demand by the middle of this century. There are about 2,200 biogas plants in the US, and about the same number in Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia combined. Biogas plants produce only a quarter of the CO2 emissions that coal plants emit.
Biomass energy has one large advantage over solar and wind in that it's on demand. So you don't care if the wind's blowing and the sun's shining.
Steve Kelly has spent years studying biomass energy. All sounds good so far, but there's a catch. Biomethane can leak from these facilities. This gas's ability to warm the planet is much greater than that of CO2. And biogas facilities are only sustainable as long as waste is used. If crops are grown for the purpose, it's not viable. Biogas facilities are one way of generating energy from biomass. But what else can we use biomass for? Fuel. To run cars, trucks, or even planes. Last year, for the first time, a flight avoided 20 metric tons of CO2 emissions, because for the route from Paris to Montreal, the jet fuel was mixed with used cooking oil. One biofuel is bioethanol. Plants such as corn or sugarcane are fermented and distilled to produce it. Bioethanol can replace 10 to 20% of the gasoline used to power a vehicle. Then there's biodiesel. It's made by combining animal fats or vegetable oils like rapeseed or soy with alcohol. As with the ethanol, the produced biodiesel is added to normal diesel fuel. Biofuels are used at gas stations worldwide. But according to the International Energy Agency, they only account for 3% of transport fuel demand. The problem with biofuels, the crops for them need to be grown, and that takes away space for food crops, or even depletes forests or biodiversity, as is happening with palm oil trees in Indonesia, sugarcane in Brazil, and rapeseed in Germany. A study carried out in Germany found that using biofuels can help save 9.2 million tons of the country's annual CO2 emissions. But 16.4 million tons could be sequestered if natural vegetation was allowed to grow on crop fields instead. One possibility is replacing crops with algae, which can be grown in space-saving containers. It's a promising field which isn't quite economically viable yet. For more on that, watch our video on algae's superpowers. The simplest form of biomass energy is our most ancient way of producing it. Just burning stuff, like wood, leaves, or waste. Though it's slowly decreasing, it still makes up 6.7% of energy consumption worldwide, especially among low-income communities with little access to other energy sources. But it is the least efficient way of using biomass. And the particulate matter that is released is bad for people's health. Nevertheless, burning stuff is also part of the carbon neutrality strategies of governments around the world. And by stuff, we mean good old trees. And that happens in the form of wood pellets. In the past decade, the demand for them as an energy source has steadily risen. With a market share of 62%, the US is the world's biggest exporter of such pellets. They're usually made from wood residues like sawdust or wood chips. Usually. Because here's the thing. Think tanks and NGOs have gathered evidence that shows that natural forests and habitats in Eastern Europe and North America are being destroyed by the rising demand for wood pellets through illegal logging. The main customer for them is the United Kingdom, but South Korea, Japan, and the European Union are also takers. Some wood pellets are used in households for heating with modern stoves. But the bulk of them go to larger power plants, some of which use wood pellets to co-fire with coal, meaning both materials are burnt together to rely less on fossil fuels. US, EU, and UK policymakers have classified woody biomass as renewable, and therefore governments are subsidizing the production and burning of wood pellets. In 2021, the biggest power plant in the UK received around €1 billion in such subsidies, according to an energy think tank. Many countries are not obliged to count the emissions from wood-fired power plants. mainly because trees can regrow. Producers are required to reforest areas so that the CO2 that is released while burning pellets is reabsorbed.
Now, in the United States, depending on what state you're in, you plant 2 to 4 trees. For every one you cut down, you plant 2 to 4 new ones. But they're this big. They're little tiny pine trees.
Researchers like Kelly suggest that the immediate impact of substituting wood for coal is an increase in atmospheric CO2. A study found that depending on the type of forest, it could take 44 to 104 years until newly planted trees absorb the same amount of carbon sucked up by the ones that were cut down.
Over a 100-year period, hands down, trees, pine, any of these ag crops are a good source of energy over 100 years. Over 25 years, over 40 years, frankly, they probably aren't.
Especially when forests play another crucial role.
Forests capture about 1/3 of all anthropogenic carbon emissions, so they are critical to staving off global warming.
Ali Pepper is campaigning for the protection of forests.
And older trees store more carbon. So there are certain forests that are even more critical to combating climate change than others. Unfortunately, these are some of the forests being plowed down for biomass energy.
A study by the Institute of Physics suggests that replanted forests with fast-growing tree species absorb less CO2 than natural forests. We will not reach carbon neutrality by burning wood in big power plants like this one in the UK.
Countries are spending money they should be spending on true renewables like wind and solar on this energy source that's not going to get us where we need to be as a planet.
Fast-growing plants are seen as another option because the carbon emitted could be absorbed again much more quickly than with trees.
Can we grow industrial hemp on old land that used to be tobacco or cotton and produce a hemp-based pellet that you burn in Europe? Sure. Can you make biomass sustainable and make sure it has a positive carbon impact? The answer is yes. But then you have to get into the details of what kind of biomass, what kind of land.
The 4% of agricultural land that we are currently using for energy plants worldwide is not enough. But most space is needed for food crops. Most forms of biomass pretend to be better than they are. Burning wood to replace coal is not a solution, because even if the wood comes from sustainable forestry or is wood waste, it still produces emissions. Wood waste can, however, be digested by bacteria at a biogas facility. And organic products like that banana peel powering your phone can help manage waste cycles. But today, biomass energy covers only a small part of our worldwide demand. It can work in combination with other renewables, but it's not scalable to be our main energy source in the future. If you like this video, subscribe to our channel here. We have videos like this every Friday.
So I think you understand these particular biomass and bioenergy and the different processes. Okay. Now in this particular processes, we are particularly concentrating on the anaerobic digestion because this is actually a established technique, right? Because the combustion process, gasification, pyrolysis, this will contain some form of emissions, some emitted, the gases has been emitted and it will going to negatively impact the Earth atmosphere or on the life on the Earth. So that's why they are mostly concentrating on the anaerobic digestion, digesters and the You already saw the biogas plants, different types of the biogas plants are there. So these particular techniques is well established, right? You will see the enormous numbers of plants in your rural area, particularly then these techniques are or these particular digesters are used to produce the biogas, and that biogas is used for the different purposes. Okay, particularly for the cooking purpose in the rural area. So these on this that's why in this particular chapter we are going to focusing on the anaerobic digestion or the digestion process and the different biogas plants and the different biogas plants its components, and particularly we are using two types of biogas plants in homes, actually domestic use. These two biogas plants and its construction, its components we are going to see. Okay, so that will be the biomass sector or the biogas energy we are going to study. Other three types are very simple one. The combustion means directly they are burn the biomass and produces the heat energy. That is the combustion. For that the combustion, the example is the wood, right? We can use the wood, different straws, or whatever the agriculture waste, we just burn it and we will find the energy. The gasification process, in which we are going to combustion, the burning process is happening there, but that burning is the incomplete burning, and the gas will be produced through that incomplete in the absence of the oxygen gas. The methane gas will be produced, or other combustible gas is produced, and that gas is again used for the producing the heat energy. Pyrolysis again is similar to the gasification process. It will have different components, but it is not in your syllabus, so we are not going to concentrating on this particular three techniques. The most important, that is anaerobic digestion, which doesn't emit any type of emission, but it is very less amount of emission will be emitted by this anaerobic digestion, which is very negligible whenever we compare it to the other forms of energy. So in the coming lectures, we are going to see the construction and working of the anaerobic digester. Rather, I will provide you the video. It will indicate or it will explain the details of the anaerobic digestion. Okay, so you will understand the functions, components, and the different types of the biogas plants or anaerobic digester. Okay, so we will stop here. In the coming lectures, I think in the next week we will get only one or two lectures maximum, and uh, if there is any other schedule, I will just provide you the videos of these the different different types of energy resources. Okay, I already shared the notes of this chapter. Only two type ocean energy and tidal and wave energy. That notes are pending. I will also share those notes on the Moodle. Just check the Moodle. If we got any further lectures, then we will cover the remaining points. Otherwise, I will just provide you the recorded videos and also the notes. Okay, so you will understand these renewable energy resources. Only introductory part is there, so it is not difficult for you to understand this one. Introductory part and the some components or the devices, main devices are there in the syllabus. So it is not difficult for you to understand it. So that's it. We will stop here. I will share the recorded videos. The previous all recorded videos are available on YouTube. I already shared you the channel link. You can go through that channel link and you can watch those lectures. Okay. The PPTs, class presentations, and the notes are already shared on the Moodle. You can access through it throughout the Moodle, and you can directly contact me if you not able to access that particular notes. Okay. So we will stop here. If anybody have any questions.